6 p.m. Call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Next up, congratulations.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next up is the agenda, and changing the agenda is written.
The only change I was gonna do ask for an executive session, but we nothing to share. So
We are not. So we need to check
you
here.
can strike the executive session.
So we will strike the executive session. And it's not an agenda item. I just on our upcoming meetings, we have our WASDA meeting, but I can add that when we get to it. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that once striking the executive session.
Motion to approve the agenda without executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Well, then, public comments. Don't see any public to comment, so we'll go on to our good of the order.
Yeah, I just have a few things. Elementary conferences are wrapping up this week, so tomorrow's the last day. School's been getting out at 1 o'clock for those students most of this week. Secondary conferences were last week, and I haven't heard a whole lot about how they're going, but I think that's also a good sign too that they're running pretty smoothly so far. Another good news is that we ordered a new set of new gym doors for Acme. They had one set of doors that were pretty dilapidated and somewhat see-through in places. So we now have fire safe doors all the way around that building.
So which doors will those be then?
These were the ones facing the annex.
Facing the annex,
Yeah,
okay.
so they were the original doors that were in there, and I asked them to save the hardware on them because I mean it's just really cool, you know, really antiques now. So maybe we can use that in another way someplace. But so you know, just little things that we're doing. I think there was also an email that to the board from a community member who's thankful for the the windows here on the shades on the 800 building. I mean, the windows still need to be replaced, but at least the shades are all uniform and look nice. So. You know, finding places here and there to do little spruce ups do make a difference. And then I also wanted to let the board know about our Veterans Day assemblies that are coming up, because these are all happening before the next board meeting. So I'll read these off, but I'll make sure that you get these via email as well. But Acme's will do the first one. That's November 6th at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I think they're going to have some kind of tea with community members as well. Kendall will be November 10th at 2 o'clock. The junior high school will also be November 10th at 8:55. And Harmony will be November 5th at 1:30. And you are all invited if you're interested and available. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And also we received a nice email from Judy Sandy appreciating the new blinds at the old Deming Elementary, which that was nice of her to notice that.
Mhm.
And so I noticed them more driving by them as a
Yeah.
result. They look nice.
I do think of you every time I'm driving to Acme and there's that sign that, says slow down now. And I remember when we were driving out there and you were saying you really want the little thank you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It works for us simple-minded people. I really want to get that thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is board member discussion, and this is the strategic plan. So looking at our 2020 and to 2025 strategic plan, and hopefully you have that printed out. I think I'd like to start out with Jessica, if you could introduce the board study session evaluating the strategic plan, this document that you drew up.
Would it be okay with the board if we we do have one other report tonight. So I was thinking maybe if we kind of combine the study session. Actually, I just noticed this.
Usually we would put the consent agenda before the study session.
Yeah.
Too.
Sorry, I must have printed a different version of the agenda. Can I see the one that you have?
Yeah, actually, I'm
Oh, it's
looking
down
at
there.
the one
Oh, okay.
that we had looked at last week, which is a different order.
Yes, so is it too late to make an amendment to the agenda?
Why don't we make a motion to amend the agenda, the order of business,
Motion to amend the order of business on.
according to, so the order of business will be, we move the board member discussion down to this, item 5, study
Yeah.
session after the finance report.
Yeah.
And then we take up, so then the next thing we will take up now would be the consent agenda. And then we go to overview of the strategic plan, feedback questions from the superintendent, and then the finance report.
Okay, so motion to approve the board discussion to the board study session after the finance report. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good.
Yeah.
So that puts us at consent agenda. So entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So then we're now we're at the overview of strategic plan, feedback,
No,
questions.
Superintendent informational items.
I've got two different ones.
Yeah,
here.
I've got her
Okay,
version
here
as
we
well.
are.
Yeah. Yep, right here.
Yeah, I read the simpler one, but.
Yeah.
Okay, this is,
For my items, last week I shared with the board just some overview information about the work we're doing with our Chromebook plan. And I would be really interested if there were any thoughts or feedback around some of that information that I had shared with the board. We do want to spend some of our capital projects money on making another Chromebook purchase. Currently, we do not have enough working Chromebooks for all students in grades 2 through 12. Eventually, we want to get 1-to-1 K through 12. And so with our capital projects levy, technology was a designated part of that levy. And so I feel very comfortable in using more of that money for the Chromebook purchase. My goal would be to spend about $100,000 right now on that. I had a quote for about $75,000 for, I believe it was 200 Chromebooks. That quote, though, we found out there might be some issues with that. So working with our technology guys on that, but that's a purchase that we would want to make within the next week or two so that we can get those ordered. In addition to that, though, we don't want to just buy Chromebooks and without being able to assure the community about how we're taking care of those Chromebooks and how we're making sure that those staff and students are really clear about how they are used. And so that was one of the things I had shared in the board update, this idea of a Chromebook assurance program. That's something that I've found out about from another school district in the state. Multiple school districts use it. In the past, districts were funding an actual insurance program for Chromebooks, which had some like legal issues and it's just really hard to manage. And so this assurance program is an option for us to collect about $10 per student each year, and that would be non-refundable. And if parents opt into that, so it's not a required fee, it would be opt-in, that would mean that if there was accidental damage, at least for the first incident, it wouldn't cost the family anything to repair. So a screen, for example, could cost as much as $50. So if the screen is broken and they have paid into the assurance program, first time it wouldn't cost them anything. That would help us build up the funds we need in order to get the replacement parts we need to start getting into a really good rhythm of being able to fix broken Chromebooks. We have bins of broken Chromebooks in the district that we need to start fixing. We're also going to be asking for some students who are interested in technology, and we're creating what we're calling a tech intern program. And so kind of like a TA class period for high school students, they would be trained how to do some of the simple fixes, like fix the screen or the keyboards or the trackpads, those easy fixes. And that will help our technology team of two start catching up on some of those things. So there's a lot more that goes into it. In fact, we've got a pretty in-depth document that we have a new technology committee that's really looking at this in detail. And next week we're meeting to go over that. My plan would be hopefully by the beginning of November to start sharing this kind of information with parents and really do a communication campaign, kind of Love Your Chromebook Month, around how, all of the information about how you take care of a Chromebook, what your responsibilities are, signature pages coming back from both parents and students, and kind of a reset in a way of our whole Chromebook one-to-one program. That's a lot of information. Just curious if there's any initial thoughts, concerns, or cautions as we go down this road.
What's the expectation from your end on how long a Chromebook should last?
Depending on the model, they should last between 4 to 5 years. And that's why this year, all of our 9th graders were issued brand new Chromebooks, and they will have that same Chromebook for their entire high school career.
Okay.
And so that also, I think, lends toward accountability, because if you mess up your Chromebook, you're getting that same Chromebook back next year. And so if you want to keep it nice for your entire high school career.
It's probably a good way to do it that way.
Yeah.
You're not,
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah. And at the elementary schools, we're keeping them in carts. So this assurance program would really just be for those students 7-12 who are taking Chromebooks home. Our elementary students, the Chromebooks are kept in carts in classrooms and hallways, and there's a lot more teacher oversight on how those devices are managed.
What do the parents sign as far as acceptance of liability currently?
Nothing. Well, it's in handbooks, student handbooks, but other than, just acknowledging.
The parents have no clue about that.
They may not, correct.
I believe we signed some kind of, at least in the elementary school, that my student and I sign a document about network expectations.
Yes, the use, but I mean, I'm
But
talking
not
about
about
the
hardware.
responsibility for damage to the.
And we did take those home during COVID.
Yeah.
And even in the reentry back, and there was nothing signed for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we do have that precedent of network accountability,
Sure.
right? So this is sort of, you could think of it as an addendum to that.
What's the current process like if a student has a damaged Chromebook and addressing that?
That's what we're trying to define. I think at times they are fined for the Chromebook, other times they've just issued another Chromebook. It sounds like it's been somewhat inconsistent, and that's nobody's fault. It's just there hasn't been a strong system to support the process. So they're just trying to manage it as best they can.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to define, especially if there's cost involved. Who's to blame, right? If there's a problem, you know, whatever the new version of the dog ate my homework, the dog it didn't make Chromebook, right? I would guess we're going to err on the side of trying to help, but still we want to have some accountability and responsibility for students to take care of the property.
I'm a fan of it because I think if there's some sort of a parent does do it and there's something happens and the parents have to find, pay money for the Chromebook, there's more of a chance of discipline or, accountability to the student. It's pretty easy when there's no, if they just take it or give me a new one, right? Like, well, that was easy. That was no big deal. They didn't care that I dropped it or whatever, right? Where if it's after mom and dad have to put out some money because you did that, I'm a fan of it because I think it's going to teach discipline and a lot of stuff.
And we need to do our part to improve communication to parents too, because I think there have been instances where a Chromebook has been damaged and parents haven't been notified in a timely enough manner.
The people who don't have $10 for the assurance program are going to have 50 or 100 or 150 for repair. So
and that's it.
There's some issues
Very
managing.
true. And we're going to work on some alternative ways that students can still be held accountable, where maybe they, do some extra work after school or something where.
But they have to volunteer in the technical.
Or they help fix their own Chromebook.
Prepare for.
Yeah, right. Well, the old timers used to work off their taxes by working on the county roads, so. Kind of that version of it.
I like seeing the idea of having, did you call them interns or tech TAs? Where we're having students learn some practical skills. I think that's a really exciting idea. And as long as fees levied against particular students for a damaged Chromebook doesn't somehow create a downward spiral of my Chromebook isn't working, I haven't paid my fee, now I can't do my homework. I can see a situation where there's students who get caught in that barrier cycle. And I like that you're already thinking about alternate pathways so that doesn't end up holding them back. But I do think, when you're putting the dollar amount of $100,000 for 4 years of Chromebooks for these students, that's a chunk of taxpayer money that we're not gifting them to the students. They belong to the district and they should be handled with that kind of care of someone else's property. So
as we talk about the strategic plan, and it's in the current strategic plan, is to develop a one-to-one Chromebook kind of sustainable system. It's $100,000 this year, but we need to plan for it on an annual basis in order to keep up with it. So that'll be a budgeting conversation as well.
So I think we can thread that needle between having a system of accountability in place and making sure that students don't get stuck in it. Or that it isn't so punitive that it ends up.
Yeah, it might be like, oh, you have to go and check out and it's not fun process to go get this loaner and then you got to bring it back and
we have developed a very
incentivizes.
not fun loaner process.
Okay.
We're hoping will deter students from forgetting.
I do like the having students as tech interns. What's your thoughts on training those tech interns?
That's still in development. We would need to take our two current technology specialists. They're up for they like this idea as well. We'll probably have the interns work out of the high school library just for supervision. So we would have to, figure out a space there where they could have their supplies and then have our technology specialists over there pretty frequently, at least at the beginning, to do some training and teach them how to do it.
It's a great skill for employment, even if they don't become tech repair personnel, just being the one at any job site who can jump in there. Oh, I got that one. That's the last person to be laid off, because everything stops when they're gone. Good.
I just had two other quick things on the board calendar or board agenda calendar that I had shared, the year-long one. I think on there, I know on there it says that the secondary principal presentation would be on December 11th. I'm actually going to have them come present to you on November 13th, our next board meeting. So they're going to be coming, and then I also believe that our band and our choir teachers are going to be here as well, because they had requested some time with the board to give a report on those programs. And then I gave each of you a piece of paper that gives the site visit schedule for tomorrow morning. We're starting at 8:30 and wrapping up by 11. I changed it just a little bit because I was trying to make sure we get the ASB class in there, and so that'll be.
Yeah, Emily asked me if there's any particular things we wanted them to address, or if they could write their own agenda, and I suggested they write their own agenda, but that some of the students may want to follow up from the ones who attended the board meeting, their discussion on the pay to play issue. I had spoken to them last week when I visited the class about the value of advocacy and how your voice can make a difference. And I said, this is a case study to look at how you advocate. You're not always going to win something, but if you don't say anything, you're not going to ever get it. So they may address the board, and if they do, that's partially my fault. So I didn't want it to reflect on Emily.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, so let's see where we're at next here. All of my papers. So we were going to, let's see, I thought we were going to do the finance report next.
That is
That is
correct.
next.
So that's
You are right.
Okay, well, as Katenna's coming up, I wanted to do a little bit of an introduction. We've been doing a lot of talking about the budget as always, but I think it was about a month ago when we knew that enrollment was down. I had said we'd have a more detailed update and report about enrollment and how that's affecting the budget in October. What I didn't understand at that point was just that the year-end process was going to take much longer. And so the details that you see in the finance report today, if you could put that up on the screen for us, is not as detailed as we've had the last few months, because it's just the start of the new fiscal year and not a whole lot of comparisons yet. I did not create any of the charts to go with it this time. We'll resume the comparison charts next month, but I will have Katenna just walk through what's there and then also talk about the work that she's doing right now to better understand the budget so that we can make some informed decisions about what that lower enrollment is going to mean for us.
Yes. As Jessica mentioned, we don't have a lot of numbers right now. The year end is it's just changing constantly all day long, so trying to get solid numbers is not a thing until the year end is completely closed, which is actually due tomorrow. We did get a 2-day extension, so hopefully I'll have everything ready to go by Tuesday for our first submittal, and then ESD has some time to come back with whatever they recommend. So that being said, our September enrollment report was at 1463. That number includes ALE and open doors, and that number is down from our budgeted number, which we all know. Budgeted number is about 1520. We do not currently, well, as of September, we did not have any, excuse me, running start numbers.
Sorry, have we talked about open doors before?
I think it's referred to as many different things. So dropout re-engage is another,
What is it?
dropout re-engage is
Okay.
another term
Oh,
that
okay.
Credit
might fit,
retrieval.
yeah.
Talked about credit
Oh,
retrieval.
okay,
I
okay.
think that sounds familiar.
And in September, our general fund revenues were at 2.2 million and represent about 6% of our budget for the year. General fund expenditures are at 2.9 and represent about 9% of appropriations. And then we've got about 26,900 in encumbrances, which overall is a 79% representation of our overall budget.
It's worth noting that September is the time of year that we spend the most in terms of materials and supplies, and so that's why you see that that we're definitely spending more than.
Yeah, and the encumbrance is just high because that's POs are open for the year. Staffing is also encumbered, so that's a large percent of that
It
number.
says 26 million in encumbrances. 79%. I
Yes.
guess I'm trying to
Sorry.
follow,
Yeah.
what does that, you break that down and what that, I don't really understand that.
So as opposed to, so the expenditures, what we've actually spent so far is 2.9 million.
Yeah.
But then we encumber funds, so any open POs, we encumber salaries for the
Okay.
year. All of those numbers that are basically held because we know we're going to spend them are
Okay.
in that encumbrance
I see.
number.
Okay. Like,
So-
Yeah, that's 79%. It's primarily salaries.
85%.
They're encumbrances that will
right.
accrue during the year. We don't
Correct.
currently owe the money, but
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the general fund September balance is 4,500,000, and as a comparison, we were at about 3.9 last year at this time.
Good.
There are no significant changes in any of the funds because we're talking about September, which is the first month of the year. So
For binding conditions, we did have a slight change in our letter, which I could share with the board. The only change is that we asked them for a little, I guess, more time. One of the conditions is that we send reports like this to the state and to the ESD 1 week before each board meeting. We don't always have all the information we need 1 week before the board meeting. And so we asked that if we could send the reports to them 2 days before the board meeting, which they said, absolutely no problem. And so it's just a schedule change on that. But they think very highly of Gaetano and the work that she's doing. So
yeah, it's positive letter.
yeah.
and then as far as working with Lisa Matthews from the ESD, which she's the deputy superintendent for ESD, and she came out and met with Jessica and I last week, and just to talk about enrollment and how that's going to impact us throughout the year and how that impacts binding conditions and help us make sure that we're looking at all of the things that we can we can view and make sure that they are making sense and lining up and realistic compared to what our budget was. So she did come out and we went through some numbers. We're finding that it's very similar to what Alina helped me with at the beginning so that she could wrap her head around what was going on. So I don't know that we'll find a big stack of money anywhere, but we're reviewing it again. And I think that'll be helpful just in terms of looking at things the way they look at them when they're budgeting and projecting. So we're looking at just reviewing budgets, reviewing non-discretionary MSOCs, MSOCs being materials and supplies and just other costs that aren't salary driven. And then just making sure that those are in alignment with what we budgeted for.
So is that the gist of Lisa's recommendations then for mid-year adjustments?
She recommends holding off on any spending until the second half of the year, any additional spending. And then once we get through this review.
So much of our cost is fixed. What goes in the category of additional spending that's not capital projects? Is that like hiring new people or?
Well, we're absolutely not hiring more people. I mean, there's certainly been there's been requests for additional people and the conversation has been, no, we have a hiring freeze. And we need to move the people around who we currently have in different ways. So that's one way that we're holding the line.
And just reassessing just expenditures in general, the need versus the want. Extra staffing costs just on a daily basis, substitutes, that sort of things. Reassessing that and making sure we're all aware. Not that we don't have any money, we just want to continue to build that fund balance, and we can't do that if we continue to spend down. Don't want to dip into our fund balance if we don't have to when we're trying to build it back up.
One thing we are also doing those, looking carefully at grants and different, like we just had a conversation earlier this week about grant carryovers that, you know, we don't have a plan yet for how we're spending all of that money. And so I don't know if the order's been put in yet or not, that some of our elementary schools had asked for some very specific resources to support math and reading intervention, which is something that elementary principals were talking to you about. And so we're able to identify grant funds that would cover that kind of cost that meets the qualifications for those grants. So we're trying to do as much as we can with what we have.
And just reassessing grants too, and making sure that we are using those to the full extent that they're awarded and not having a lot of carryover.
In the capital budget, Todd Reitmeyer was told me he was pleased that you were able to find the funds that had been languishing for several years for timber stand establishment for one of our recent harvests on school district owned property, and so that we should be able to go ahead as he helps us organize that expenditure. So I'm glad to see that, because that's one of the responsibilities of owning and managing that land, is being able to put it into the state that it will grow successfully and continue to produce revenue for the school.
You're talking about spending some money to replant?
No, so it's land we've already replanted, but the weed species, whether it's maple, alders, cherry, that are coming up and overtopping the fir, and you have to thin those, pre-commercially thin those out. So
we're gonna spend some money to thin it so that we can reap the benefits of a.
Yeah, so you can get any kind of crop, because otherwise you just get the so-called weed trees.
When does that work happen?
What's that?
When is that work happening?
Todd will be, my understanding is Todd will be working to coordinate.
Yeah.
He was gonna check.
You said not until after the new year, right?
Yeah. right.
March or something.
He
So are
was
we
gonna,
hiring someone or our students? And he.
oh, no, it would be hiring a contractor. It's mostly chainsaw work. I think it's beyond the stage of spraying. He did spray some of this younger stuff earlier, but this particular batch of work, I think, is primarily chainsaw pre-commercial.
Okay.
So you're cutting trees about this big. And so it's necessary to establish a stand. And once you get it past that stage, it grows on its own.
And the funds came from the harvest initially.
Right, and they were supposed to have been set aside, and they were set
They
aside,
were.
but where they were set aside, you were able to find.
Found
And that's what made John so happy. Cause I've been asking about it periodically. Good.
It's a thinning ourselves to find the money.
So anything else, questions or anything else you have on the finance report? So our next step would be evaluating the current strategic plan. And so now I'll go back to,
Thank you.
Thank you.
let's see, did you? This is a separate document, the strategic plan process. So what were we gonna? You had two things here. One was, and maybe presenting the questions at some point too, but
Yes, yep.
were you gonna do that first or should we?
Well, what I wanted to do, well, I'll do whatever, however you want me to do it.
Yeah, that's
but,
fine.
What our study session is tonight, it's about evaluating the current strategic plan. And then I do also, at the end, just have some updates about the strategic plan and process moving forward as well. So you have a little half sheet of paper, put that to the side, we'll talk about that at the end. And then you should have a stapled packet that has our logo at the top and it says evaluate our current strategic plan. That's the document that we'll focus on right now. And then you also have some sticky notes in front of you and we're gonna, like bring my teacher side out just a little bit. We're gonna have a good conversation, I hope, around what we're doing here.
Years have been.
Oh, you got the fancy guy. Okay. So the purpose that why we're doing what we're doing today is to reflect on the strengths and limitations of the current strategic plan and use a structured human-centered approach so that the next plan addresses the right problems, not just the familiar problems. Might be really easy. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I know people come to you all the time around, well, the district needs this or the district needs that, which may be true, but as we build the strategic plan, we want to make sure we're looking at the big picture and being strategic in how we build this and build solutions. The other thing that's important to know about today is that we're not rewriting the plan today. Be nice if we could do it in one night, but it's not going to happen. But I do want us to learn from the current plan so we can define the right problem. As we go. Last couple of meetings, we've talked a little bit about the idea of the design problem-solving process. And I'm, for the purposes of how we're going to be thinking about our planning, associated with the design process is the design thinking process. And this is an industry level tool where like companies from around the world, whether it's engineering firms or advertising firms or lots of non-education type industries, use this as a way to develop products and solutions for their customers. And it's a really strong tool that we can also use in education. What makes this special is that it's really focusing on people. Like we're, one example is if you have like a suitcase that has rollers on it, wheels on it, that was something that was first designed for flight attendants as they were trying to, maneuver their luggage around for their job. And now that's something that we benefit from as the consumer now as well. Another example of the successful design process is the MRI machines, those big machines that people have to have those diagnostic tests out of, those are pretty terrifying for children. And so a lot of hospitals now have specially designed rooms for children who have to have MRIs that just look friendlier, like kind of they design them like under the sea things, or just fun little things. But the way that they got to that that idea was really examining why are children struggling with this. I mean, it's yes, they're afraid, but what would help them feel better? So with us here today, we're going to be really focusing on the empathize phase of this, and that's part of understanding what people need out of a strategic plan. And then also starting to define what is it that we're wanting to get out of our strategic plan. The ideate, prototype, testing, that's all coming over the next many months. We're going to be coming back around to a lot of parts of this process. It looks kind of linear in that picture. It's not intended to be a linear thing at all. It's something that we'll get down the road a little bit. We're going to need to come back and empathize and ask people what they think, and then define different problems. And in the end, it might take more time to do things this way, but in the end, you can feel a lot stronger about the process and the end product that we have. So we're going to do a little empathizing here today. This is a picture of some of our seniors from last year. And so I'd like you to grab those sticky notes. Actually, well, you can do it on the sticky notes, or you can do it on just the front page of your packet. But I'd like us to take just a couple minutes of time where we're not talking, but we're just kind of reflecting on these questions and writing down some answers that we'll share in just a few moments. And it might seem obvious, who is this plan meant to serve? That's why I chose it like that. But like, try to really think like who else, and who are the different types of people within our district that our strategic plan serves. Now, this plan was written back in 2019, 2020. The world was very different back then for many reasons. What were some of the things back then that our community needed most, that our students needed most? And then start thinking about now here in 2025, looking ahead to 2030, what are some of the things that students, families in the community need now? So I'm going to ask you to take a few moments just to write those down, and then we are going to be putting them onto sticky notes too. And you'll notice we've got some posters up here, so we'll be getting up and moving around a little bit as well. So it is 6:41 right now. I'm going to give you to 6:43 before we start talking a little bit.
You mean this plan that we read, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. I'm gonna move us forward a little bit, just because if you're still writing ideas, that's okay. My intention, part of the reason why I'm using posters and sticky notes and things is I want to be able to take pictures of our work, because I want to create a really strong, colorful record of how we did this process, so that 5 years from now, as we renew this process, we can look back at, you know, how did it go this time? What worked, what didn't? What was some of the thought process? I think as the community learns about how we're doing this, it's important to show them what you, the board, how you're investing in the process and the time that you're putting in. So what I can do, if you do have sticky notes, why don't you get up and put them on the empathize poster up there. And then we'll come back and we'll just have a conversation about some of the things that you put up there. Who or what? Yeah, any of them, any of the questions.
I didn't put them on sticky here. Okay. Thinking them up there, isn't it? And for them.
I had to use spell check, can't have school board members spelling words up there.
Oh, sure you can.
You're just modeling vulnerability. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a rough draft. Fix it later.
Okay, so it's okay to continue writing more notes or more ideas down, but let's start the conversation. Who were some of the people that you wrote down?
Staff and students and community,
I wrote down students.
yeah, taxpayers and leadership teams. It seems like there's a lot of stuff in there about leadership.
And I think all of you could break down staff into all of our different employee groups, right? A strategic plan helps theoretically helps give direction to everybody. You know, how are they making their expenditures? How are they showing up in their different roles? For teachers, how do they align what they're doing in their classroom to those bigger targets or goals that you're trying to meet?
Any other
I
different?
think who the plan was meant to serve was all students, but especially struggling students. I think most of the academic focus, you know, the trauma informed and all that was the strategic part of it was struggling students.
That's good. When this plan was finished, I know we talked about this a little bit last week, everybody knew that COVID was kind of fully a thing, right? Like, so that
I feel like
idea
this was
of-
finished before COVID.
Yeah,
COVID
okay.
hit.
I think it got, Annie said it was before she got on the board, that it was completed and she started. in
COVID
2018.
basically started like February 2020.
But the list about school year activities I don't know if those maybe,
Well, we
there
must,
was a draft and then they got revised as time went on because a lot of it is COVID. Yeah, it feels like a lot of it is talked about COVID, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't this made pre-COVID in 2019.
well, that's a good question, because the resolution is 2021. So it's the 2021 school year, so it would have been,
Well, what month?
well, that would start in, in say August, September.
And
So,
everything shut down in
so
March.
we, in 2020, so that would be post-COVID. We start, I think the school shutdown was what, March, wasn't it? 2020. So,
March 13th. It's
so this
the day
was,
I'll never forget.
this plan was finalized, I should say. I think we probably did a lot of the work to develop that before then, but finalized after COVID, and you can see how much the focus is on that was driving much of the focus.
Any other groups of who this plan was created for?
Like students is the focus and then everyone else is supporting that.
Theoretically, and I put this down, any kind of accreditation body that's coming in to review externally would look at your strategic plan, right? So if you're thinking from an outside perspective.
If you had it.
So, if you had any kind of work that you were doing at a state level to look back at what districts were doing, then our strategic plan could be useful to folks outside of our community looking in either to assess our efficacy or whatever, right? So, yeah.
But I think maybe somebody already mentioned, but I think the other strong the group that plan was meant to serve was the broader community, so that we would have the work of the school and the connection between the students and community members outside of the school system, a greater focus on that. I think that's probably one of the areas that we didn't pick up on to the extent that we intended to. But that was definitely going into it a strategic direction that we've done sort of somewhat, but this was intended to be a much more concerted strategic in effort to connect with the broader community, including the tribe, but not exclusively, just many more connections.
I would also say potential families, people who are looking to move to the area, your strategic plan is sort of your calling card. It's who are you? What are your values? And a savvy parent might be poking through the website and they might not exactly know what a strategic plan is. But I read it and they go, oh, this is who you are. This is what you're trying to do for my kid. That sounds pretty good, or I don't know what this means. Right. So I think that's part of who the plan is for too. It's about communicating out to anybody who's interested in our district, who we are and what we do and how we make it happen.
So what were some of the things that our students, families, staff, and community most needed in 2020? I think we've talked about COVID a little bit, but aside from the COVID related needs, what were some of the other needs?
I put communication, because even during COVID, with all the stuff with what was going on or not, communication was needed and still is, right? So.
Well, I think there's a lot of focus in it, and I think that was data driven in the plan on how do you help children who are impacted by trauma learn? And that to me is still a strong question. I don't think we've hit on, that was a goal. I don't think we've really hit on the answers. We may have made some progress, but it's.
I think one of the words I put there was resilience, which
Right.
all students need to come back from something,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
some type of failure, or be okay to fail and then try again.
Right. Having those tools to do that. Yeah. Definitely.
But leadership and forward thinking, like outside of the box kind of stuff, yeah.
As you think about what these groups need now, is there anything different now compared to 2020 in terms of needs?
I can't take the COVID hat off. I was thinking about, from an instruction standpoint, during COVID and even the years of uncertainty after the initial shutdown of it. From instruction, you almost needed like an ultralight backpack. You needed to streamline down to the most essential things because you had to be flexible. You had so many people teaching in a format they'd never taught in before, with students who are trying to learn in an online format or a hybrid format they'd never learned in before, and having to translate all of your curriculum and how you do things into a totally new way. One of the things that we really needed, and I'm sure instructor or teachers here really needed, was to not be bogged down with extra paperwork or extra details, and to keep everything focused on the absolute essentials in the classroom, right? And I think I see evidence of that in this, right? Sort of like the focus on the school year activities, like here's what we need to get done. It's almost like a to-do list, like keep it focused on action. Sort of streamlined and ready to pivot. Because there was so much change and adaptation that had to happen, that took up a lot of bandwidth for our students and, well, for everyone, but especially in the classroom, where your job just didn't look like what you've been doing ever before that. And I think what we need now is something different. I think we need to how do I say it? We need to start building back out that infrastructure that maybe we thinned out to get through a challenging time. We need to do maybe more drilling in on a strategic plan, for instance, that has assessment targets built into it and measurable goals. I can say that.
Yeah, we had that previous to this strategic plan, then we didn't put those in this time, but we did have, here's the subject, here's our goals, and then this is this year on increasing goals. But
yeah, this to me reads very streamlined and focused on actions. But the alignment between the goals and then how will we know that we've met those goals? We were in such a space of uncertainty that I think it was hard to ask people to be accountable in that way, but I think we need to shift back to that or forward into it, however you want to think of it. Maybe shift forward into that.
I would say, I would wonder about keeping some of the things that we did learn during COVID.
Yeah.
So then next time, it's not such a shock when we have to do something like that again, because we probably will. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming, like, anything could happen. So exposure to like different ways of learning, whether it's like a hybrid version or keeping some of the online stuff, you know, because there are online classes for college students, and those are really beneficial. For when I was in, you know, and going to college, it was really helpful to like have my child and go to school. But you know, if you're in high school, it's not easy. But if you got, you know, exposure to that, then it's, you just roll with it. So
That's an excellent point, because that's learning how to learn, so that as you leave high school, how you learn is you have to continue to reinvent yourself, more so now than looking backwards, because society and technology changes so rapidly now that you really have to recognize when you need to learn and then have the skills to do so. So I think that's
I was really scared to take online classes, but once I did, I was like, this is great. Why didn't I do this sooner? So I think it would be beneficial to not forget everything that we pivoted and tried during COVID, because you could apply that to anything, whether it's not a, you know, terrible disease. It could be the floods, it could be a lahar, it could be Mount Baker blows up, any of that stuff. So
it doesn't even have to be in response to an emergency.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot on the instruction side about what I've seen people learn is how to give students more options to choose how they best learn, right? And I think it's interesting what you're saying, Brenna, about, you know, how online learning was so useful for you. And I know we have a lot of students who do credit retrieval through online, but how many students do we lose to running start because they can take online classes that we don't offer that modality? And maybe that's too much for us to ask, but we've got a lot of teachers now who have experience having done that.
yeah.
And I mean, even having our board meetings recorded and people can watch through Zoom, I'm assuming that that is something that is new since COVID.
yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we didn't have that.
Right, so that's something that we've learned, that we've carried forward, and it's created opportunity for people to see and participate that can't be here right now.
Yeah.
So I like that point, what you're saying, right? Like, what can we take that we learned and adapt it, not necessarily even to be ready for the next event, but just that
Making more
we
options.
realize that gives people more options for access and for ways of learning that might not work best for everybody.
Yeah.
But we already know how to do it now.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, the strategic plan is intended to move you forward, and I think if you look honestly at this 5-year period, we've actually moved backwards. And so we have significant learning loss still lingering from COVID. We saw that in our latest elementary presentation of the first batch of this year's data, particularly in mathematics, but it's across the board, and so that's something that we take away from this time period. And then the other thing that wasn't included in this plan because it hadn't really moved into our world yet was artificial intelligence. We had technology in here, but there's no mention of artificial intelligence because it just wasn't on the plate at that time. But terms of online learning, even more than that is which what you teach every day is how I wrote some note here, something was, students need to be competent, savvy, and safe when it comes to both technology and artificial intelligence, and that's something that's we wouldn't have really foreseen in putting this together.
I think we can update what, and I know there's lots of forecasts on what are emerging industries and jobs that are going to be required, but certainly that's changed over the past 5 years. And look at that, then work backwards from now and say, what do our students need to be learning now so that they're in the best position to take advantage of the best opportunities that are going to happen? Because some jobs we're going to need more of, some we're going to need less of, so we want to help students develop those skills.
I think that'll be a really
Yeah.
good data point for us to be keeping in mind as we.
Yeah.
I think,
Did you say job
we
forecasting?
can't.
Just you mean in terms of looking at what types of jobs are going to be more higher demand.
Right, okay, yeah,
Yes.
that's what I was kind of spacing out a little bit, but I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
so.
We can't miss the focus on getting down those basic skills. No matter what jobs you take, if you can't do simple math, if your reading skills are deficient, your writing skills, you're not going to be able to navigate through any of that.
Mhm.
And now we have the added need of being able to sort truth from fiction in artificial intelligence, how to use that successively, artificial intelligence, in a straightforward and honest manner. If we don't, if young people don't learn those skills, their products are going to hallucinate as much as the artificial intelligence.
But also to teach young people how to leverage it to personalize their learning.
Right.
I mean, it's such a powerful learning tool with guidance. And for those of us who've already been trained in how to do good research and how to do good learning and thinking, you put an AI next to you and it's like a playground. So our students still need those basic skills, those fundamental skills. But if they can be learning those alongside of a built-in tutor that they can ask any question they want to without any kind of shame response, that's really freeing for learning. And to be able to say 25 times, I still don't get it,
Mhm.
and not worry that you're wasting someone's time. I mean, that's so much potential that our students could be leveraging to get help and support and to even just explore their own curiosity.
Anything else to add on this first step?
Well, back on the basics, I had a conversation a few days ago with Todd Reitmeyer, and I pointed out, just having his forestry students study the new commissioner's plan to set aside so many acres and what, doing the math and figuring out what the growth rates and everything would be with and without this way. He said he doesn't have students that could do that simple math. That really struck me hard. This was math that if you're on top of your learning, you could do it 5th grade.
I think it really gets back to connecting interest with skill development. And unfortunately, we're competing with students' interest from what they can get on here. And not that I have a good answer for that, but if someone's interested in that, they're gonna then develop that skill. And I think that's the age-old question in education is, why should I care about that? Right? And so when I met with, my daughter's advisor, he said, math is a gatekeeper. That's better than nothing, right? Like, it's a gatekeeper with how colleges assess students and whether or not for admissions and things like that, which is a fair assessment. We could talk more about that, but it's helping students connect with why should I care about
Okay, I'm gonna move us along. I already know we're not gonna get through everything that I had wanted to tonight. That's okay. I think we can, I've got it in mind, a way where we kind of, I'll leave you with a little bit of homework tonight. And then when we come back at the next meeting, we'll finish up this conversation. But what I really want to do tonight is make sure we do a deep dive into the current strategic plan. And so we're going to be looking at each of the goal areas. So if you look at the second page of your packet, I've listed out each of the goal areas with space for you to start collecting some evidence from the current plan around what's there, what's not, and what would you like to see. But to get us started, and again, to create a visual for telling our story about this process, what I'd like you to do is think about the strategic plan as a whole. So in a minute, we'll dive into the individual goal areas. But if you think about the strategic plan as a whole, take your sticky notes again, and I'd like you to come up with one or two things that you really like about it. Like if someone asked you, with the strategic plan, what's something in this document that you would want to make sure we keep? Whether it's content, whether it's structure, what do you like about this plan? So come up with a couple things there for sticky notes. And then on the poster, so you'll see the plus side. So that's where what you like would be on there. The delta is what would you change? What's something that you hope we don't keep exactly the same? So again, big picture, plan overall, one or two sticky notes for what you like and one or two sticky notes for what you would change. We'll put those up on the poster and then we'll dive into the individual goal areas. And as you're ready, go ahead and put them up in the poster.
Oh, you already did your good. I made some notes when I was reading. Oh. Just remember. I'm fine.
That's all I got and done too.
So what I'm gonna do is read out just some of the things here for the pluses. So there's a like of the mission and vision and goals, most of the objectives, the format. Objective 1, model a pathway for pre-K 12 students, really like the pre-K plan. Leveraging local history and natural resources, a connection to the community. Keep goal 3, culture of care, build connections between students, staff, and the community, which also intersects with goal 5 of community engagement. Keep goal 2, finance, continue to work to achieve a sustainable financial condition. Use data to assess all student needs. Place specific language. What do you mean with that?
There was just a lot of wording that was integrated that was about here.
Okay.
That's specific to here.
Mhm.
I don't know how else to put that. I can try to find some
Okay.
examples.
Yeah, that's good. Culture of care, professional growth, learning as a system, shared leadership, names, teams and bargaining units. Centers student well-being as a foundational, not an add-on. And then focus on asking questions and seeking out data to move forward. And then for deltas, not liking the wording of culture of care and not a clean plan on what to do with the information received from stakeholders.
Are we supposed to do the delta side too right now?
Well, you can start writing while we continue talking.
Okay, I'll add my deltas in a minute.
Okay. Okay. So those are some of our big picture ideas around this. And so here's what I want to do. I kind of take your guidance on how you want to use time today. What we can do is spend maybe another 15 minutes starting to look at each of these goal areas. And I don't know if you would like some kind of more quiet time just to fill this out, or if you would like it to be more of a conversation. What we can do is, and maybe this would be kind of the homework part of it, what we don't finish tonight, have you do some more reflecting individually. And then you'll also see that step 3, which is there, is around once we take everything that we've talked about, we need to start coming up with what is it that we want to create with this new plan. So that's defining the problem. There's that sentence frame there, blank, need blank because blank. So for example, our students need consistency in learning experiences because implementation has varied widely by school. Or our community needs more clarity on our goals because the last plan was too complex to track. What I'd like to do as a product of this process, which will be a continuation into our next board meeting, that we would have a collection of some of these statements that I could take to the steering team and say, the board, based on their analysis of our current plan, these are some of the problems that we want to define with our. And again, that'll be a tool that we use as we start building that new plan.
I like taking these back home and filling out each square, and I appreciate your column, what is unclear or hard to measure, because I went through the whole plan here and found just on my own, oh, this, this really fits under that column without thinking that way.
Yeah.
So I imagine what we could do if you just write them out handwriting, we could just take a picture of it and email it. Or
I could also
Our
send this
sheet.
to you digitally, and if you wanted to type in it, you can do that too.
yeah, that would work. Do you prefer typing to writing?
No, I said, I don't know if I could do it.
Well, I think if for me, I mean, just write, I can type, I know where some of the letters are, but that would work fine, but if you want.
Well, I'll email it to you and you
Thank
can do
you.
what you want with it.
Thank you.
What would you like to do with our time tonight? Like, how much of this do you want to dive into now, or as a group, do you think you need some more time?
I have some questions.
Mhm.
Because I haven't looked at a wide scope of strategic plans,
Mhm.
but I found myself suddenly wanting to, because I wondered, as I was looking at the, like, how do I measure things? It felt like the plan had goals and action items, but the action items felt more like, almost like operational plan level. Maybe strategic plan, what are we trying to achieve and how will we know, what will it look like when we've achieved it? It's not a to-do list.
Yeah,
It's
measurable.
it's a vision of, here's what we want to accomplish, and here are some indicators that we've met that we've met that particular goal. Here's some indicators we've met this particular goal. And maybe some targets and timelines, but not down into the weeds of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, how deep do other ones get? Like, 'cause that's kind of what I was thinking too, it's just there's all of these. And, I was thinking about it as I was reading this, like, it's not that it's too hard to understand, it's just that there's so many questions and then there's not a lot of answers. Or not a lot of pointing of where to look for
Guidance.
where we're gonna answer that question, or how we're gonna know that.
How do we know it
How do we
happened?
know we have the question, or the answer to that question? That's kind of what I was missing, and so a lot of that is,
Can I show you Othello's strategic plan, just as an
Yeah.
example? This morning, I emailed the consultant who helped us with this. She's very well known across the district, or across the state, Dr. Tammy Campbell. She's got her own.
Yeah,
Isn't
she was
that
up
lady
here.
in here?
Yeah. So
You were here for that?
she's fantastic.
Yeah.
But we also don't have the money to afford a process like that. And so, but I emailed her this morning. I said, hey, I hope you remember me from Othello. I'm in Mount Baker now. And we're starting this process. Would you be open to at least a phone call where I could show you what I've got started? Would you give me some feedback? Which she immediately agreed to. And so this afternoon, I Zoomed with her. And so I've got some more ideas that I'm going to build into that overall draft plan that we have. But the good news is I think we're on the right track. So the plan that Othello has, there are certain things I will also tomorrow email you Quincy's strategic plan and Oak Harbor's strategic plan. Both of those districts also use Dr. Campbell. But let me see if I can get this so it's you can see it better.
Were you on the board when she was here? That was at the very beginning.
Not really sure what my options are for making this bigger, so bear with me here. So first of all, the words there, believe, achieve, belong, empowering dreams for all. Those are words that the team, with board and the planning steering team, those were words that we developed together. And so there is some branding and some I think words that will come out of our process that we can bake into how we present our plan to the Mount Baker community. So this finished product, this picture here are all the people that, not all the people, but a representative of the people who helped build this. So you've got a lot of our administrators and teachers and students that were a part of that. The 4 goal areas that they worked on were safety and belonging, early excellence, mastery of standards, and future ready. And you can see that each of those goal areas have outcomes and then performance targets for the year by the year 2030.
That's what
Yeah.
you're gonna ask.
That's what I'm saying, that's what we
Yeah.
don't have in ours.
And again, that's big picture, right?
Yeah.
And so for each of those goal areas, there's pages that dive into how that's going to be done. Now, things like finance or communications or operations, those are foundational goal areas that aren't necessarily, so these are student focused goal areas. Those other supportive, very important needs can also be part of the strategic plan, but they live in a different place than these 4 goal areas. Let's see. We did develop a profile of an Othello graduate, and I know that's something this board has talked about wanting something similar as well. And that's a major work in progress, because how that looks and how that actually becomes part of the work that teachers and students do is not an easy thing. These are an example of the district foundations. So in order to do those 4 goal areas, we need to have engaging teaching and learning systems, an authentic community engagement, facilities and operations. And then they were calling it a culture of excellence. So some of the things that I see currently as positives in our plan, I think could live in a section like this, where we're clearly defining what we want to see happen with finances, what we want to see happen with how we're caring for each other and engaging the community.
Yeah, it's a nice layout. So your primary part of it is student, particularly academic, but the whole student.
Yep. This is an example. I gave you, in one of my previous documents with the board, I used this page as an example. I just didn't keep the formatting. But one of the outcomes in safety and belonging is to increase the percentage of students that feel a sense of belonging in our schools. And then below that, you'll see the list of metrics or kind of assessments or measures for how we will get that information. And then clearly stating what teachers and educators will be responsible for, what school leaders will be responsible for, and what district leaders will be responsible for. Knowing that we can't do all of that in 1 year. And so on the far right, you see the stage or phase for when are we going to do that, whether it's year 1 or 2, 3, 4, or 5. And those all happen to be green for years 1 and 2, because those are things that the district felt like they could tackle right away.
That's a good distinction too, the implementation and then sustaining, because some things you never finish.
Exactly. They're always going to be ongoing. Here's an example from early excellence: increase the number of students who are reading on grade level by 3rd grade. And then how are we going to do that? I'm just going to go back to mastery.
That's a very targeted goal that probably has a lot of positive outcomes demonstrated.
Well, and you talked about math, or someone was talking about math being a gatekeeper. 3rd grade reading performance is also a gatekeeper. If you're not reading fluently by 3rd grade, your outcomes change dramatically. And so if we don't get kids by then, we're only making things harder on everybody after that.
So that's a very targeted outcome to try to create the best possible impact for our
Exactly.
students
Mhm.
long term. It's not just a feel good or a random goal, it's based in longitudinal research about
Mhm.
when it needs to happen
Yeah.
to give students the best chance.
And remember the way that that's being measured, come back up here, in early excellence. Where would that be? 8 out of 10 students read at or above grade level by the end of third grade. And Dr. Campbell was really intentional about having us not just give percentages, but talk about actual students that way. Because when you say 8 out of 10 students, that lands differently than 80%.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you could take 10 people, and we actually did this exercise where you have 10 people at the front of the room, and then where they did what Othello's current data was, had the people who were not passing sit down, only 1 or 2 people are still standing. Like, oh, we've got some work to do.
Yeah.
So it personalizes it.
Yeah, I really love that it's student, it's not just a percentage of a
I
pie.
feel the same way about our fund balance.
Yeah.
Dollar value, not a percentage.
Mhm. And then an example from Future Ready, let's see here. Increase the number of students passing all of their classes at every grading period. Increasing the number of students meeting standards, grade level standards. Increase the number of students who have a clearly defined graduation pathway and course taking patterns toward their career interest areas.
There, I think the earlier one that said, 8 out of 10 actually makes more sense than just increase, because increase could be half of one child, or it could be 9 out of 10.
Mhm.
It's taking it, really understanding your current condition, putting a goal that's challenging but doable in front of you.
Well, what's nice about this too, if you look down lower, is the performance targets give us those targets, right? So 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 freshmen are prepared for on-time graduation by having 7.5 credit, right? Like that. So you get those targets in there, and the performance targets, I think, are also where you can really personalize by looking at our baseline data and saying, is it reasonable to have a 500% increase in the next 5 years? Maybe not. So we look at our baseline data and say, okay, our target might be a little more modest. Maybe we're gonna aim more modest in places where we've got bigger areas. And if we beat our target, right, awesome. Yeah.
Tomorrow, when we visit the junior high and high school, and then when those principals come and speak to the board in a couple weeks, you're going to hear Principal Duran talk about on how many students are on track. And so what's going to be nice about this process is we already have some really good things in place that we just need to strengthen. We just need to make sure that Principal Duran and his team have the support that they need in order to do the work. So increase the number of freshmen prepared for on-time graduation by having 7.5 credits. That's been the work of Mount Baker High School for a number of years. So how can we keep on with that momentum and create a goal, maybe something very similar to that, where it's really clear what the expectation is and what we're working toward. In Othello, they have the Husky Pack because they're the Huskies, and so it's their 9th grade class. And Mount Baker has a 9th grade academy system as well. And so there's a lot of similarities there. But how are we defining it? How are we explaining it? And how are we creating accountability at all levels for it? It's nice to say that we have it, but how are we holding ourselves accountable?
The other thing in terms of accountability for the school board's role here, and reading through, I liked your third column of what is unclear or hard to measure on your analyze and sort page, because there were several items where I thought, well, I suspect this is going well, or I wouldn't know because we've never had any reports on that. And so as you know, at least maybe the school board version of the plan, we have, okay, what are our own measurements going to be? And what reports or measurements are we going to expect so that we can see how we're tracking with this?
Yeah, and I think to be able to measure if we're meeting our goals, we have to make sure that everything that we put in a strategic plan is actually measurable. Because there is some language in here that is harder to measure. And it's not that that stuff isn't happening or that it isn't great stuff, but that the indicators of meeting the goal that you list on your strategic plan, they need to be concretely measurable. Right? So students might be understanding or learning something, but I can't actually see your understanding. It's not outside of you for me to measure. Right? And so we have to make sure that what we put in there, we define it in a way that's measurable.
And that's why it's important to me to hear from each of you about within those goal areas, what are the things that are really good? I've spoken with a few of you where we're not saying that this whole document needs to be thrown out.
Right.
So what can we keep from this and maintain and improve on? And then what's still needed? What's missing? How to, you know, we can put together a glossy, pretty thing, you know, in the end, but we just need to make sure it's the things that Mount Baker needs and wants.
And I really like the mission and vision statement. It's strongly worded, it says we will do this, right? Educational foundation. I really like the vision, you know, starts off with reading, writing, and mathematics. And they're the basic things that we should be after. Talks about critical thinking, and I think you mentioned that before. Creativity, problem solving, self-discipline, civic responsibility, and preparation for. So I think I really like the higher level aspect.
That bulleted list there on the front page of our plan, that strikes me as a really strong foundation for a profile to graduate.
Yeah.
That's what we want to tell the Mount Baker community. When your student leaves our high school, this is our promise to you about what they can do.
The goals I like, I guess I was the one that wrote the comment about the culture of fair wording. And then when you had this thing up there, safety and belonging, I'm like, that's what I was looking for in that kind of category that's maybe a little less abstract.
Yeah, because care is hard to measure.
Right.
It's subjective, it's internal. So what does that, you'd have to define that. What does that mean?
Because I, as a teacher, can tell a student I care about you, and that student could still say back, yeah, but I don't feel safe and I don't feel like I belong here.
Right, right. Yeah, so maybe rethinking some of the wording that we're choosing and making it more concrete.
Right.
I'm also thinking that intro of every Mount Baker student will, that you're saying might be interesting for graduate profile, and I like the foundational concepts. I think it would be really important to pull in and lean on Bloom's taxonomy when we're actually writing and wordsmithing in the details, and pick the highest order verb that you can from that taxonomy. It's basically categorizing sort of thinking and learning words, and then it gives a hierarchy of like, these ones are analytical, these ones are just basic and observational, and it sort of builds. So you can scaffold from the easy stuff to the harder stuff. And if you're thinking about outcomes, like the ultimate thing that we want students to be able to do, we want to make sure that all of those verbs are higher order verbs that they're representing. Because if I can do an analysis, for instance, that covers a bunch of other verbs underneath it, and I only have to say the one to imply all of the others, right? So like when we say, I'm just looking at some of these, I don't need to go into the weeds on that, but Bloom's taxonomy and picking the higher order verbs for the goal statements. And then making sure that we're picking verbs that are measurable. Right, like
I really like that.
acquire reading and, like acquire the academic basic, what does that mean to acquire? How do you measure acquirement?
We spent money on it.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to frame, I think the reading, the writing, the math, yes, but we gotta reframe that in a way that we can actually.
So speaking of priorities, is it also worth prioritize the average student as well as the goals?
Wait, say that last part.
You're talking about prioritization,
Yeah,
right? And so as much as I like this every student will, have we looked at it from that point of view? Is it important to prioritize those? And maybe that was already considered, I don't know.
yeah.
Same thing with the goals.
Well, what I'll do in my board update tomorrow is I will send you links to the little plan that you just saw. The Quincy superintendent just sent me the one that Quincy uses, and then I was at a superintendent Zoom earlier this week where the Oak Harbor superintendent was talking about their plan. And so 3 very different districts, but you're going to see some similarities in just how they put it together, but still made it represent their own communities. And then I think that might help you as you consider ours. Again, ignoring the presentation part of it, but just really looking at the content as we go through this. What I would like to propose for our next meeting is we kind of do a continuation of this study session where we would start with each of you sharing some of your takeaways from each goal area, and I'll be the recorder for that. And then let me share the screen here again. And then we'll talk about this idea of defining the problem and what are the things that you as the board want to charge the steering committee with ensuring that we're working toward. Does that sound
Yeah, that's,
amenable?
it's reasonable amount to get back.
For next steps, we don't have clear insights yet, but we will. In November here, I will be working on identifying that steering committee. And then the other thing that little half sheet of paper that you have, that is the feedback survey that is now open. I shared it with a group of parents at the Acme PTA earlier this week. I'm going to be going to the other 2 elementary PTAs within the next month. And I have a whole list of different places where I'll be sharing this and inviting people to participate. The survey will stay open until mid-January, and that'll be part of the steering committee's work is to take the results, and we will be using AI to help us develop some themes around, because there's going to be a lot of words and a lot of information. So to develop themes about what we're seeing. I think that when we're at WASDA, that's going to be another opportunity for us to maybe seek out sessions specific to strategic plans and continue to develop our understanding around what we're looking for. First week in December is when I'm planning to have that first steering committee meeting. And I've been working on some more strategic plan overview. And in my board update tomorrow, again, I have some work to do tonight after hearing from Dr. Campbell. So I need to make a few tweaks to that, but I'll keep you informed in that. And I also plan to, in our website, to have a strategic plan kind of bar when you first go to the website so that the public is interested in this information, full transparency and what we're working towards.
Would it be part of the newsletter?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So this will be part of the newsletter. That'll go out in the first week of November. So it's going to be in the Foothills newspaper as well. Just getting it out in as many different ways as possible. Putting it out on Facebook. And one of the parents told me at Acme that she goes, well, I think you're going to get a lot of feedback. People have a lot to say. That's what I want. Good.
I've heard a lot over the years that our students have once they've graduated and they go out into the community or the workforce, especially going out into the workforce, that our students have a reputation of being hardworking and self-starting and X, Y, and Z things. It would be really nice if maybe we could, knock on the door of some of that feedback that we've heard over the years and make sure that we're not trying to reinvent and fix things that aren't broken. There are some things that we do really well. And if we can name those and be intentional to preserve and maybe even grow those, what already makes a Mount Baker graduate special?
And how do you see that fitting in this, as part of this?
Into the strategic plan?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's part of us identifying what we already do well, so that we make sure to name it and give ourselves credit for it and hold on to it and keep doing it intentionally and maybe not by tradition or accident. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes there's just things that we do good and we don't even know why or how we did it so well.
It's like, well, those quadrants that I talked to you about at the last meeting. So we've been lucky in a lot of things. How can we move that to leading because we know why it's,
We can name it.
yeah.
If we can name it, we're more likely to be able to reproduce it, right? And some of what we do really well might be tied to a handful of really specific people. Todd Reitmeyer comes to mind, right? And as an institution, we don't want what we do well to be tied to individuals. We want it to be systematized. We want it to be reproducible by other people. And for it to spread out. And so the folks that have maybe been carrying our success, we gotta like tap in and name and figure out what it is that they do so well so that we can bottle it up.
We put an objective around something that we do well, knowing that we do well with that.
So that we keep doing it.
Yeah, Jim Freeman filled that role for many years.
Yes. We tend to, especially, and this happens, I think, in small communities, excellence gets tied to individuals instead of systems. And then you lose that individual, they retire or they move on to another role. And there's this gaping hole.
Yeah.
And if we can actually identify who those people are and what it is that they do so well and try to teach ourselves how to do it more like that. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've often thought that way in terms of kindergarten, teaching with Anne Marie Hinterland. How do you take the lessons of how she approached kindergarten and apply that going forward? It was common that her, the academic data from her kids would be 25% higher than anyone else.
So what was she doing? And if we can name it, we can reproduce it.
Yeah, I got mine.
He can play the guitar.
Yeah.
That's a good point because we're not doing everything wrong.
No. Right. No. And it may be that the strategic plan that we wrote has some nuggets in it that we can make use of and repurpose. But I also think it's also just words that are trying to capture what's important to us. And if we just take a moment to just look out and say, who are the people? What are the things? What do we do well?
Yeah.
Because we do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot about our student participation in extracurricular or co-curricular activities, right? That's a really high percentage traditionally, and that is something that we've had success with, students participating in that. So how do we codify that?
I think one thing that I'd like the board to consider is we definitely have a mission statement. It's combined with the idea of a vision. I'd like to maybe go by the end of this, have a more well-defined vision of what Mount Baker is what we're wanting to do for students here, but also make it short enough that it's easily remembered. Like, it's not just words on a page. Like, if I would love that, in a couple years after this is built, I could go, you could go up to any staff member in our district and say, what's the vision of the Mount Baker School District? And they would know it. And it would be easy to remember. I mean, that's powerful. So, I mean, I think that's what Othello was trying to get at with that three word statement around what Othello was about. Maybe we'd use a little bit more words than that. I don't know, but something that's easy to remember and it's meaningful to our community that represents our district, I think could make a very powerful vision statement.
I think our mission statement, if I remember correctly, was developed by a combo of staff and community members, of which Ron Lepper was a member of that as his first year teacher
Wow.
here at Mount Baker. I remember interacting. I think Cindy was on the committee and I attended some of the meetings.
Oh, so this mission statement
Before I
is
was on the
older.
school board. What's
This
that?
mission statement is older than the 2019? Is that what you're saying? The mission statement is older than 2019?
It was what?
This mission statement, you're saying goes back to 1995. This mission
probably.
statement has been
That's-
around.
Yeah, but I think
Okay, I didn't know that.
we've looked at it over the years and we never seem to be able to,
Outdo it.
outdo it. Yeah, I think they did. I think they were a very thoughtful group of people and it's
Well, that makes me like it even more.
it's
It's tradition.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, we will continue this study session at our next board meeting then.
So I think it's productive discussion here. I think we're starting to feel our way through it. So we've got next part here is upcoming events and meetings. Of course, we're meeting tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Where do we want to meet?
We'll meet right here.
This room, okay, 8:30 to 11. And then I also wanted to add to the list of meetings that you see on the agenda was the November 20th, 22nd. That should go on the minutes for this meeting, probably. So we've got that down. Tammy, I presume you'll publicize that as a special board meeting. We are not going to do the executive session. I had one further question that I had written down but missed in the finance report is what is this year's revenue from federal impact fees? So if we could get that answered, maybe send an email to us because that's there's some question as to whether the federal government is going to actually fund that this year. And so I want to know what the impact might be to us.
Okay, I will find out.
So with that, we're adjourned. And we stay to sign things.
Oh.
No.
I'm with you on that.
Okay.
I was feeling the same thing. It
Yeah.
was just very generic.
Right.
And we just